I thought I would die in prison. And so many other members of the Clemency Collective thought they would die in prison.
I was taking responsibility for my own acts. I said, I'm going home.
And I came into my unit and everyone hugged me.
And I took those first steps out of the facility and held my family.
Although I was leaving, my heart and mind was still back inside because I knew who I was leaving behind.
I hope that there's a place to recognize and value the capacity for redemption. That's what I think clemency has to offer. It makes us better.
It is an awesome power, and it's such a life-giving, awesome power.
To change people's lives, to change behavior, to change the way people think.
Who are the best people to make the case for clemency? The people who receive clemency.
I had a 50 to life year sentence. If not for the miracle of clemency, I would still be in prison right now. I was incarcerated for a wrongful conviction. I served over 40 years. And in 2021 in September, I was released from prison on the grant of clemency. And it has been a blessing. I came home and me and some other clemency recipients got together along with this law professor, Steve Zeidman, and we created a Clemency Collective. It's his tireless efforts that resulted in all of our paths to freedom. I'm honored because I get the chance to work with him at the school's Second Look project.
This is the letter you wrote in 2019. Right, this is our first contact. Yeah, that you wrote to me. Remember reading this last paragraph. If rehabilitation has any meaning, if there's a belief that a person can change, if there's faith that the goodness of a person exists, then that belief is perverted if a reviewing branch only considers what that person was convicted of 38 years ago and not what they have done for the past 38 years. If someone is doing what now people are referring to as death by incarceration sentences, 50 to life, 75 to life, clemency is really their only out in New York. And when I say they're only out, the only way to avoid perishing in prison, because New York, we're truth in sentencing state. You get 75 to life, you have to do the 75 years. So clemency exists in the state constitution, and it gives the governor absolute power to commute or reduce a sentence.
And what brought you to this work?
Several years ago, there was an email that went out to criminal law professors all across the state. It was about a woman, Judy Clark, who's doing 75 to life. And there'd been a lawyer trying to figure out a way, how do we extricate her? I was shocked, by the way, that she was still in prison. And I said, if nobody else responds, I'll see what we can do. And soon thereafter, I got an email back saying no one else responded. So please do whatever you can. And then I went to meet Judy, and that's really what got me started on this back end work.
So I'd like you to meet someone whose clemency brought a lot of hope to myself and many long-termers. After being sentenced to 75 years to life, Judy Clark pursued a path of redemption for herself and others. So could you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself before you was incarcerated?
So first of all, I'm turning 75, so I've been around this earth for a while, and was a product of the radical movements of the 60s and 70s. I built up a style of politics that got more and more isolated from grassroots movements and more dependent upon the idea we were going to win through armed struggle. And so the particular thing I was arrested for was that I was a getaway driver in an attempted robbery of a Brinks truck done by, primarily engineered by people from the Black Liberation Army. And in that failed action, 2 policemen and a Brinks guard were killed. 3 of us, when we went to trial, basically refused to put on any defense. We went in and made political speeches. I always think about the fact that there were people who had lost their family members in that courtroom who were not able to acknowledge at the time. And ultimately, we were thrown out of court. And the day I was sentenced to 75 to life. which was obviously the longest sentence they could have given me. It was 3 25 to life sentences, for felony murder.
Next is someone I've known for a long time during my incarceration. And after being wrongfully convicted, John Adrian Velazquez, better known as JJ, found a way to create a culture of change in prison.
Coming from the street and allowing myself to be placed in a system so that an individual can look at my picture and misidentify me for a crime. And then when I was a suspect, I go to the precinct and I volunteer for the lineup because I don't know what they're talking about, but I want to get it over with. Right. And that was the last choice I made as a free man. We were both wrongfully convicted, spending almost 65 years in prison for crimes that we didn't commit.
Yeah. I'd like to introduce you to another member of the Clemency Collective. Is a man who, as a teenager, faced a life behind bars, and that's Alfonzo Riley.
A couple of times I would leave campus, go home, hang around people from the neighborhood and friends that I've known, and got into trouble. That trouble led me to being arrested and convicted of felony murder, where I did not commit the homicidal act of killing 2 people, right, by all accounts, right, but I was involved in the underlying felonies. It allowed me to be charged as if I actually committed the murder, right? I was actually sentenced to 2 murders. I was sentenced to 71 2/3 years to life, right? For a crime that happened when I was like 18, 19 years old. There were only 2 judges that handled felony cases for the whole county, right? Those 2 judges had a bet on who would give out the most time before they retired. Right. So I can understand why they ran my sentence the way they did to amount to that. He was trying to hedge and bet. And the prosecutor said, sure, everybody knew that. How many people, I would assume, got sentenced unfairly without consideration of the factors in the case, just to the maximum term because the judges wanted to wanted to win the bet.
A couple of months after I was sentenced, my trial judge made a racist comment using the N-word in open court. You're familiar with that case? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I put that on your situation in line with that because those kind of situations are so egregious, but it tells you the mindset of the judicial system and what they think about us, people, in particular people of color. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Stanley Bellamy. Facing a death by incarceration sentence of 62 and a half years, he refounded his humanity, becoming a community leader, educator, and advocate. And he continues this work with the Releasing Aging People in Prison campaign.
My family moved to the Queens when I was 5 years old. And moving from the Bronx into Queens, that transition from the Bronx family community structure that I was used to coming out to Queens where we didn't know anybody. Right. We was free to do what we wanted to do. Yeah, basically. We basically all raised ourselves. At the age of 9, one of my classmates was killed. They said that the police officer pushed him down the stairs of the train station. I got involved. From 9 years all the way until I got arrested in 1985 for this crime. And living by the rules. And the thing is that I didn't understand, I didn't value life, Mingo. I didn't value my life, I didn't value anybody's life. So in 1985, I got caught up in, it was supposed to be a gun sale, and a young man got killed. And another man got shot 3 times. And so I got sentenced to 62 and a half years to life.
Once you're inside, you got this massive sentence, and take us inside and take us on a journey of transformation.
I showed up in Bedford Hills, which is the maximum security prison for women in New York. I had a 1-year-old child that I left that day when I went on this action. long before I was able to think about the harm I caused the victims of the crime, I recognized the harm that I had caused her and the chaos in her own life that was created by that. And then the other thing was ending up in SHU for letters that were found that really were. I mean, I was charged with conspiring to escape. I would say I was conspiring to escape my reality, much more than the actual physical prison. And I think, like most long-termers, I'm sure yourself included, you sort of decide, am I going to die in prison or am I going to live in prison? If we live in prison, then we have to figure out how do we take the prison experience and use it both for our own betterment and the betterment of our community inside. And we were facing the beginning of the AIDS epidemic.
Yeah.
And myself and my co-defendant, Kathy, worked with a group of women, brought together a group of women, and we built an organization called AIDS Counseling and Education. It was a movement for where women were able to say, we have to save our own lives. And in order to do that, we both have to take ownership of the changes we need to make and also recognize the strength that we build as a community to care for each other and be the change that we're fighting for.
My journey started in Green Haven. I was young, wet behind the ears. I was in your class. And me being able to see individuals like you and Jabal facilitating courses, teaching law that is relevant to us, because you were teaching parenting. You were teaching, the law about our rights as a father, an incarcerated father, and I had 2 children.
Yeah.
I started to see a pathway for me. I was like, you know what? This is the closest to freedom that we're going to feel. Seeing the school building being an escape way for not just me, but for other younger people that were in the yard lost. And when I started to feel that I can help other people, when I felt helpless and couldn't help myself, that's when I realized this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And the more investment that I was pouring into others, and the more that I got to see them invest in others, the more I started to become whole and feel human again.
Yeah.
Because I had lost that somewhere along the journey.
I was in the first facility in Elmira Correctional Facility, and went to the director about attending college. The semester was about to start. He said, your sentence is really long. In my experience, people with long sentences don't do well in college. That made me more adamant about going to college, just because he was telling me that. So I saw it as a challenge.
Right.
So I said, put me in college. I was insisting for put me in college. Right. So I went into the college program, and education transforms a person. It gives you promise. I finished college, was working full-time in the law library, working on my case. That's how it started, but began to help other people too. That became my work.
When it came to the victim, I couldn't say their names, because in order to say their names, I would have to, recognize the harm, pain, and stuff that I caused them, and I wasn't ready for that. In 1990, I was pulled into the Resurrection Study Group. That's when that transformation began, the healing, to start, finding my humanity. In '89, my son's mother gave birth to a child that wasn't mine, but the child was born addicted to crack. And that made me realize that my 2 sons by her no longer had a father, because I was serving 62 and a half years of life. Now they no longer had a mother because she was addicted to crack. And so that made me really say, listen, I got to get my act together so I can take care of my kids and raise my kids from prison. And when my father died in 1991, I lost a lot of friends growing up. A lot of my friends was killed senselessly, but I never felt that pain that I felt when my father died in 1991. 3 months after my father died, I was allowed to read my pre-sentence report for the first time. And the prognosis in my pre-sentence report was that I would never be redeemable. But that wasn't what got me. I got to read Gary's mother's statement. For the first time, I was able to relate to and understand her pain and suffering and that I caused. And that changed my whole life. You know? So I made 2 vows that day that I would do everything in my power to make sure no more mothers would have to cry because their young sons was gunned down in the prime of their life. And I said I would do everything in my power to make sure no more mothers would have to cry because their young sons was given prison sentences that exceeds their life expectancy. Yeah. And those 2 vows carried me throughout the rest of my being. As incarcerated men, we had the ability, we had the talent, we had the skills to help solve some of the problems in our community.
Prison is corrosive, and what it doesn't corrode, it swallows up. And if you're not careful, it will swallow you up. And so there's always conflict, there's always violence, there's always something going on. And it creates this bad mix. So the people that's not involved in that, you get caught up in it in the sense that you might just be around it when it's occurring, but it's constant. So, and then the attitude of the staff is very hostile. I was in the cell in the reception company, and 5 o'clock in the morning, people asleep, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and the officers would run in the cell and take guys out, supposedly for a urine test or whatever. But imagine yourself sleeping and you startled out awake, huh? And the cops are standing over you, and all of a sudden, like, don't move, huh? And now, because you move, they start assaulting you, saying you are being aggressive and you attempted to assault them, so they would beat you up, drag you out the cell, bloodied up, you know. And these are the kind of things that went on regularly. They try to pit prisoners against each other. Like, I've seen officers come in and tell people, like, yo, you know, this guy that locks over there, yeah, you know, he's such and such. He's in here for this or that, you know, this and that. So they try to get guys to go and do something physically to the person. So it's that manipulation game where they try to manipulate everybody against each other. Even though I was physically in prison, that I couldn't allow my mind, my heart, and my spirit to be locked up. I can't change what happened. Nothing in this world is ever going to change the time that I lost. All you could do is take what happened to you as a lesson and grow from that. I followed clemency applications for years, and I noticed the one thing that all the clemency applications had, I would say out of the 17 people I know that received clemency, all 15 of them were all in college or had college degrees at the time. It makes a huge difference. Not just because you're trying to obtain something, but it makes a difference in your life for you. Now you have this sense of accomplishment that nobody can take away from you. You have this sense of dignity that nobody can take away from you.
As we began to do the work to really build a robust children's center and parenting center, where we developed classes and workshops and built the resources to be able to bring our children on regular visits. That work of building family and my own work of trying to rebuild a relationship to my daughter and the rest of my family, I couldn't do that without coming to terms with the fact that there were families that had lost a loved one that they could never reclaim.
So could you take us through that journey to obtain clemency?
As we both know, at the time, most people who got clemency had didn't have such serious cases where there was other loss of life, and certainly loss of life of police officers. But I had 30 years of having done work that was recognized as productive and reclaiming on pretty profound grounds. And I had built a large network of support on the outside based in that work. And it took 8 years. We started under Patterson. We had to go through 6 years before Cuomo realized that he should start using his awesome power. And so he said, well, I have to meet her and and assess for myself. So I was downstairs actually doing tutoring work when the dep of security came and said, you have to come with me. I thought I was in trouble.
Don't you always see when they can get you?
And then I walked upstairs and he puts me in this room. And I was as surprised as anyone else was. I was in shock, actually. He wanted to understand, well, what was my motivation? Why did I do what I did? And then he wanted to understand, well, what was your process of change? So there was like an open curiosity. He could tell that I was speaking my truth as I understood it. And I think that's what gave him the confidence, along with everything, all the work that people had done, and all the argument to say that we have to begin to believe that people can change.
Yeah.
Once I started learning about clemency, I was like, wait, maybe this is something for me, right?
Right.
And then once I started learning the law, I realized that anybody that had a case where it was the murder of a police officer would not have an opportunity for clemency. So then I just cast that out. I don't know what changed or what happened, but I know that the Innocence Project just had a meeting with the governor's office about putting 2 or 3 people up for clemency. And I'm like, you know who you're talking to? I'm not eligible for clemency. They said the governor's asking for your stuff. Do you want to send it or not? So I'll send it, right? And nothing happened for like 5 years, but every year when it got close to Christmas, everybody was telling me you're a top contender.
Yeah.
And I would get my hopes up.
Yeah.
And then I would get shot down and deflated like a balloon that gets hit with the pin, right?
Yeah.
So I reached out to Professor Zeidman at CUNY, and he assigned two students. They had me writing a lot. I mean, a lot. And doing a lot of soul searching, deep introspection, telling my story. I was taking responsibility for my own acts.
Right.
I wasn't pushing blame on anyone. To me, that was the best thing that I could have done, because it was the most honest thing. It was the most real thing. It was the only thing that made sense. And that's what they wrote. That was the clemency package that we all put together.
And I think that that's huge because of the role of remorse, atonement, and repair in the clemency process. That's key to even being considered for clemency.
I always felt like this is worth doing no matter what. And if it happens, it happens. So I was in the visit room with my friend Gilda, who had been on this journey from the beginning for 37 years with me. And the first deputy came in and he said, congratulations, the governor has given you clemency. And I was ecstatic. And I came into my unit and everyone hugged me, and it was just, and I had thought of like all the times when I had been hugging other people for that good news. And now was my time. They came and got me at 3:30 in the morning by the state police, and I was put in cuffs to be taken to New York City and taken to parole. So I didn't have
that joyous
leaving at all. But my family had been told that, and the day before, and when I opened the door to come in, I heard my daughter's voice saying, "I think I hear Mommy." And it was like 6:00 in the morning. So we had this incredibly long day, and it was May, so it was beautiful.
Yeah.
The sunshine was out.
The dep of security comes in by himself. Say, yeah, come with me. I was like, oh boy, they must have found something somebody had in there and they blamed it on me. And, especially when we got to the door, the superintendent and the deputy superintendent were standing outside the door. I was like, oh boy.
This can't be good.
Yeah, this can't be good. She started reading the email from the governor's office. And it said, you were granted clemency. Excuse me. Yes. I have been locked up 30 years.
Trust me, I know that feeling.
Thank you. When I eventually got to the point where I was understanding what she was saying, I was like, wow. And I just went back to the law library and just sat in my seat. And I was like, just staring into space. I was stuck. Co-workers, even the officer there were like, well, what did the depth of security take you out for? I said, I'm going home. That was the best feeling.
Just walk me through it when you found out what were told.
Oh, that was a funny day because I had went to the mess hall. They had potatoes in the mess hall, and they still had the skin. So I decided that I want to make me some French fries. So I went to the mess hall just to get the potatoes, and I smuggled the potatoes back to the cell so I could chop them up and make me some French fries. So I'm sitting on the bed, peeling off the potatoes and chopping them up, and all of a sudden I'm in Green Haven. And I'm facing a window where the sun comes directly in my cell. But all of a sudden, with my head down, I notice that the sun is blocked out. And I look up, and there's 5 COs in front of my cell. I'm like, oh my God. So when I see these 5 COs standing in front of my cell, I'm saying, oh my God, somebody said something, did something, got me involved, and I'm going to the box. He says, the boss wants to see you. So it takes me like 3 seconds for it to register. The boss wants to see me. I said, hold up. This may not be as bad as I think it is. When the superintendent he comes in with the DEPA programs, and he has that big, that long folder the folder with the saying that you got clemency in it. So he got that in his hand, and he tells you, and I was shocked for a minute. Yeah, I got real emotional that day. I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it.
I know the feeling was, you're gonna get clemency after all these years. You got it in your head.
It wasn't gonna happen. I was basically giving up.
Yeah.
There's a feeling I never thought I was gonna feel walking down them stairs, seeing all of them. And I can't even really describe that feeling, but just being free to be able to get in the car and then go just leave. Although I was leaving, my heart and mind was still back inside because I knew who I was leaving behind. I was leaving a lot of good brothers behind that also deserved the same thing, opportunity and chance that I was receiving.
I called my sister on the phone, and my sister said she was acting real funny, evasive. She told me, she said, you got clemency. I said, who told you that? She was like, well, I got an email. You got an email from who? And I was like, oh, really? Okay. So I'm thinking it's wishful thinking. And then I was at work, and the lieutenant came down, and he pulled me out. So as he reaches in his pocket, and he starts reading off the letter, and just suddenly the swell of emotions, it's hard to explain. It's just like something was traveling up inside my body, and it traveled all the way up till it got here, and I couldn't speak. It was stuck here. It wouldn't come out. When in the cells, I'm thinking about the 2 events. I'm like, nah, it's got to be a crude joke. Like somebody's just playing a game, and this can't be real. And then the next morning, I woke up, and somebody called me and told me, yo, you're on TV. So I cut the TV on, and I saw it on the news.
I got a visit from a friend, and he said, yo, there's word in the grapevine, you out of here. I said, can't possibly be. I don't even have a motion in the court right now.
Right.
When it was finally revealed that I would be released, and I took those first steps out of the facility and held my family, there hasn't been a better moment in my life. I left my children at 3 years old and 5 weeks. I came home to them. Now, you know, fortunately for me, they have blessed me with grandchildren, both of them.
Good.
And so I'm able to relive the life now with children. But yeah, man, like the greatest gift Clemency gave me was reuniting me with my family.
My situation is slightly different in the sense that I got reconnected with my sister and my two brothers. Unfortunately, you know, one is in very bad health and anticipate he's not going to be around much longer. But one thing that still haunts me and it has haunted me is my daughter. I don't know where she's at,
Wow.
and I got locked. You know, I was locked up, so I lost. You know, she was put as the mother was deceased already, so she was put in foster care, and the foster parents wanted to adopt, and I had to go to court, and I went to court, and I wanted to challenge it, and it went against me. And obviously, from inside, you can't really do nothing. But I'm still searching.
It's
You know,
powerful.
you lose so much, man. You know, how did the transition, you know, the work you did inside, and how did that translate into what you do now?
So, Our Children was the community-based organization that ran the children's center in the nursery where I worked. And so I came here as a natural, where a lot of my friends lived, and they welcomed me, and we had a welcome home party here. When I made Clemency, it was joy for the whole community.
Exactly.
And so I felt it was really important for the governor to realize that it is an awesome power.
Yeah.
And it's such a life-giving, awesome power.
Yeah.
These glimmers of hope are what people can grab hold to and say, I will do the hard work of change. Yeah. I want to be better. Yeah. It gives people that motivation.
It does.
Let's use clemency and let's use every means we can so that people have hope and people change and people can stop dying in those prisons.
Right.
And I think that out of that spirit, we formed the Clemency Collective. Mm-hmm. We take seriously our responsibility for what the gift that was given to us.
Right.
We may have earned it, but it also was given to us, and we want to pay that forward. And we want to say, we left people behind that are very much as deserving as we were.
That's right.
Use that awesome power and use it well.
What you get in Clemency, and it gave me the belief that, you know, I could have a chance.
While I was inside, I basically was the mouthpiece for rap anyway. I was working for them on the inside. So when I came home, it was natural for them to just give me a job. Rap is an organization that was created now 11 years ago to help individuals, you know, basically come home. As you know, we sponsor 2 bills, the 55 and older bill that says anybody 55 and older who've been in prison for 15 or more years, that they should be given an opportunity to go to the board to make their case for release. And the fair time parole bill that says basically that when you come before the board that you should be judged on the merit of who you are now as opposed to who you were 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. There are many others back there that deserve the same opportunity that I had. Don't be fearful to give them the opportunity. No, this is not about politics. It's about human lives. It's about uniting families. So I thank you and all the other brothers, all the older men that was in there when I got there that basically set the pathway for me to follow.
So I want to thank you, you know, for being who you are. And it makes perfect sense for us to come together as a collective.
All the work and all the stuff we did together and how we created inside. Could you imagine what we can do out here if we just put our heads together?
I said, okay, where can I apply for a full-time job?
Right.
And I was like, you know, I want to be a public defender. The legal aid societies is synonymous with the idea of public defender. The resume and cover letter were clear that I spent a lot of time in prison.
Right.
To me, that's my strength. Because I bet no other candidates going there spent 30 years as a paralegal doing the work that I did.
That's right.
I actually received offers for each position that I applied for. the one I chose was the wrongful conviction unit, because it most related to the work that I was used to doing.
Right. Side.
Right. Which was mostly post conviction. Yeah. I digest cases of clients. I read them. I screen them. I do some legal writing, some analysis. I do intake for people who write to us for assistance.
Right.
I go back in the prison. I've been to several different prisons back inside as a paralegal with the attorney, helping other people.
We all went into prison. We all got ourselves either in college, in programs, and transformed ourselves inside. And we used that transformation as stepping stones. Not that we would, I don't think any of us was doing it solely for the purpose of getting clemency, because clemency was such a rare thing. It was like a miracle that we did it to change ourselves. And in the process, we were rewarded by clemency.
Right. Peers sharing in the work going forward. Yeah. And we're, mentoring folks on the outside and even in our workplaces.
Since you've gotten clemency, how have you continued that work?
Since I've been home, it's been nonstop. I was released September 9th, 2021. August 4th, 2021, I became a program director for the Frederick Douglass Project for Justice. I went straight in. I started bringing people right back into prison. And everybody thought it was ironic. You spent 24 years of your life fighting to get out of prison. And now you're bringing people into prisons on a regular basis, every 2 weeks, 9 different states.
Yeah.
Like, it's really all about being married to the mission, not forgetting where I came from and what I went through, and knowing that it's still continuing in other people's lives. Creating a Clemency Collective with you and Steve. Sat down with the president to discuss criminal legal reform, one of the biggest forums since I've been home. I got put into this film, Sing Sing.
Yeah.
Right? And initially, I thought I was going in as a consultant. I'm not an actor. But we got on screen and we made something beautiful happen. And now, we're reaching a different demographic that we don't normally reach. It's because we're rarely portrayed in this way that this movie does, like in terms of the strength and power of relationships, of humanity, of redemption. When it comes to measuring, our gift of clemency through, Governor Andrew Cuomo, and now looking at Kathy Hochul and what she's doing, what I can say is that I'm grateful for the fact that she's listening. Right. We sat down with the governor's office, we sat down with the Clemency Bureau, and they were open to our proposals. Right. It's obvious that they're pushing them because, the rolling clemencies have started. I don't think that they're rolling enough, but they have started. We're getting clemency now issued in New York State more than just once a year. And it's continuously happening despite politics that's taking place in society, and she's not getting threatened for it.
Right.
And so governors need to stop being scared to do the right thing. We're not asking you to release the world. We're asking you to release the people who have demonstrated the change. Right. We're asking you to release people who can actually help society become better.
Yeah. Collectively, we can make a huge difference.
We've come home and we've gone straight to work.
That's right, hit the ground.
We hit the ground running and we continued service, which should be a demonstration to others.
The need for this work is so evident in this simple fact. Just by going to a couple of prisons and a couple of articles, the letters exploded, and it has never stopped. So last year we had 878 letters, where we can probably represent 10 or 15 people. These are the letters. This is 1 week. This is from last Monday till this Monday. So every January when I get a new group of students, we cull through the letters that have come in the year before, and it's the most depressing exercise because we can only do 12, 15, because we are so limited in our capacity. We view clemency for the people who are serving death by incarceration. So getting your letter and reading it, and then we went to find out what we could on Westlaw, learned about the legal history, learned that you're doing 50 to life. And it just drives home the point that the idea that there was never any reconsideration of this person's sentence. Not to mention what jumps off the page, the actual innocence. Just said, this is someone we need to work with. And so my hope is we've seen developments. We've seen more clemency grants. We've seen clemency for people convicted of murder, which, again, people said would never happen.
Right.
We're now seeing it on a rolling basis. My hope is we just need, I know these are words I use all the time, to regularize and normalize it, to make it happen in every prison, every year, a set number of people.
People are more valuable outside in their communities than in prison. But we need everybody to contribute, everybody to make phone calls, to send letters, to do whatever you can, use social media to ask the governor to grant more and more clemencies.
You see it in my eyes. We found high among the lows, yeah. Ain't no stopping, so we don't go. There's no slowing down, no, not right now. Cause the ways of the things that we do, ball hard and hold everyone who here accountable. Speaking of, stack it up till it's high as the stars in the skies. Always told to shine bright. You see, yeah. I've been starting with the one looking right at me, slipping at a high rate, moonwalking backtrack. Clear as black and white, sometimes we need a break. Human nature don't want to be here and get away. But I think it's time for me to start something. Being the change you want to see, thrilling thinking of it. Got to be there in the well, however feels fitting. And they'll remember the time you chose to make a difference. We fly high among the lows, yeah. Ain't no stopping, so we don't go. There's no slow